The red dust of Mars swirled around Commander Lisa Bennett's boots as she made her way across the rocky terrain. The year was 2157, and humanity had finally established a permanent research base on the red planet. Lisa's breath fogged up her helmet slightly as she followed the unusual energy readings her scanner had picked up earlier that morning. "Base, this is Commander Bennett. I'm about half a kilometer from the source now," she reported into her radio. The static crackled before a response came through. "Copy that, Commander. Remember, you have 4 hours of oxygen left," the base operator replied. Lisa checked her wrist display, confirming her oxygen levels. The strange readings had first appeared 3 days ago, but this was the first time they had been stable enough to track. As she climbed over a ridge, her scanner's beeping grew more intense. "Energy signature is getting stronger," she muttered to herself, adjusting her direction slightly to the left. The Martian wind picked up, reducing visibility, but Lisa pressed on. 20 years of space exploration had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, they were telling her this was important. The scanner led her to a narrow canyon. As she carefully made her way down the steep slope, something caught her eye. A metallic gleam that didn't belong in the natural rock formation. Lisa's heart began to race as she approached. "Base, I think I've found something." There's definitely something artificial here," she reported, her voice steady despite her excitement. Partially buried in the red soil was a smooth, silver-colored object about the size of a car. Its surface showed no signs of rust or age, despite being buried in the Martian soil. Lisa brushed away some of the dust with her gloved hand, revealing symbols that were definitely not human in origin. "Base, you need to alert Earth Command immediately. We're not alone." "I repeat, we are not alone," Lisa said, her voice now trembling slightly. Within hours, a full research team arrived at the site. Dr. Catherine Wright, the lead xenorchaeologist, began the delicate process of excavating and studying the artifact. The team worked tirelessly, setting up powerful lights and research equipment around the site. "Commander Bennett, you need to see this," Dr. Wright called out after several hours of study. Lisa made her way over to where Catherine was examining a panel that had begun to glow with a soft blue light. Catherine pointed to the symbols that were now clearly visible. "These aren't just decorative markings. There's some kind of language, and they're changing." The artifact had begun to respond to their presence, projecting holographic images into the air above it. The images showed star systems, space battles, and most importantly, a species that looked nothing like humans. They were tall, with gray-scaled skin and 4 arms, their movements precise and mechanical. Admiral Peter Monroe arrived from Earth the next day, along with a team of military experts and scientists. The base's main conference room was packed as Catherine presented her initial findings. "The artifact appears to be a warning beacon," Catherine explained, pointing to the translated text on her screen. "These beings, who call themselves the Nexarians, have been systematically conquering galaxies for thousands of years. They're highly advanced, incredibly organized, and according to this data, they're heading in our direction." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Monroe stood up, his face grave. "How long do we have?" Catherine looked at her notes, based on their last known position and speed of expansion. "Maybe 5 years, possibly less." "Then we have work to do," Monroe said firmly. "We need to prepare. Everything we know about warfare is about to change." Over the next few weeks, more discoveries were made. The artifact contained detailed information about Nexarian technology, their battle strategies, and their weaknesses, if they could be called that. They were a species that operated on pure logic, with no concept of emotion or improvisation. Their predictability might be our advantage, Lisa suggested during one strategy meeting. They won't expect humans to act irrationally or emotionally in battle situations. Admiral Monroe nodded. "Agreed. We need to start developing new battle tactics, ones that they won't be able to calculate or predict." Earth's governments, for the first time in history, united under a single cause. The threat of the Nexarians was too great to ignore. Military budgets were increased, and resources were poured into developing new technologies based on the information from the artifact. Dr. Catherine Wright worked day and night with her team, decoding more of the artifact's data. Each new discovery brought both hope and fear. The Nexarians' technology was far advanced, but they had left this warning for a reason. Someone, somewhere, had managed to resist them. "Look at this," Catherine said one evening, showing Lisa a new holographic projection. "These patterns in their ship formations, they're always perfect, always following the same mathematical principles. They literally can't comprehend acting any other way." Lisa smiled slightly. "Then that's what we'll use against them. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to be unpredictable, to think outside the box." As the first month of preparation drew to a close, Earth's entire military structure was being reorganized. New ships were being designed, incorporating elements of Nexarian technology with human innovation. Training programs were developed to teach soldiers how to think creatively in battle situations. Admiral Monroe stood at the window of the Mars base, looking out at the artifact site. "Commander Bennett," he said as Lisa approached, "history will remember this moment. The day humanity learned we weren't alone, and more importantly, the day we started preparing to defend ourselves." Lisa nodded, watching as another research team headed out to the site. "Do you think we can win, sir, against an enemy this advanced?" Monroe turned to face her. "The Nexarians may have better technology, but they don't have what we have. Imagination, creativity, the ability to feel fear and use it to drive us forward. They don't understand human determination, and that's why we'll surprise them," Lisa finished. As the sun set on another Martian day, the artifact continued to glow, sharing its warnings and knowledge with its new guardians. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and though the path ahead would be challenging, they were ready to face whatever came their way. The game of galactic survival had begun, and humanity was determined to be more than just another conquered species in the Nexarians' path. They would fight, they would innovate, and most importantly, they would show the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most advanced technology, but the one with the most heart. The Deep Space Monitoring Station near Pluto's orbit was usually a quiet post. Most days, Lieutenant John Hammond spent his shifts watching endless streams of data flow across his screens, looking for any unusual patterns in the vast emptiness of space. But today was different. "That's odd," John muttered, leaning closer to his main display. The readings from Sector 7, near Neptune, showed unusual energy spikes that didn't match any known natural phenomena. He ran the data through the analysis programs 3 times to be sure. "Control, this is Deep Space Station Omega. I'm picking up some strange readings out here," he reported, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he collected more data. Back on Earth, at the United Space Command headquarters in Colorado, Admiral Monroe was immediately notified. The memory of the Mars artifact's warning was still fresh in everyone's minds. Within hours, a reconnaissance mission was launched. John's small scout ship, the Starling, moved silently through the darkness of space. As he approached Neptune's orbit, his ship's advanced sensors began picking up more detailed readings. "Control, confirming visual contact." John's voice was steady despite his racing heart. 3 objects, approximately 2 kilometers in length each. They're definitely ships. Design matches the Nexarian patterns from the artifact database. The news spread quickly through Earth's defense network. The enemy they had been preparing for had arrived sooner than expected. Admiral Monroe called an emergency meeting of the newly formed United Space Command. "The scout ships are just watching for now," Monroe explained to the assembled military leaders. "But we all know what they represent. The Nexarians are here to assess our defenses." Dr. Daniel Carter, the lead scientist for the USC's Technology Division, stood up to present his latest developments. "We've managed to adapt some of the shield technology from the artifact's data," he explained, showing holographic diagrams of the new defense systems. It's not as advanced as theirs, but it's better than anything we've had before. The USC moved quickly to implement the new shield technology across Earth's defense fleet. Training intensified, and civilian populations were quietly prepared for the possibility of evacuation. A week later, John Hammond's sensors detected more Nexarian ships arriving. "They're maintaining position just beyond Neptune's orbit," he reported. 7 ships now, all larger than the scout vessels. The tension on Earth was palpable. Military bases worldwide were put on high alert, and the first wave of civilian evacuations to underground shelters began. The public was told it was just a drill, but those who knew the truth understood these preparations might soon save millions of lives. "They're studying us," Lisa Bennett observed during a strategy meeting. Just like the artifact warned, they always observe first, learn their enemies' patterns, then strike when they think they've calculated every possible outcome. The USC used this time to their advantage. While the Nexarians watched, humanity appeared to follow predictable patterns in their space operations. But beneath the surface, they were preparing surprises. Dr. Carter worked with his team to develop new weapon systems. "The key is unpredictability," he explained to the military leadership. "Our ships need to be able to change their energy signatures randomly. If they can't predict our movements, they can't calculate their responses." The waiting game continued for 3 more weeks. Earth's forces maintained their routine patrols while secretly moving key resources to secure locations. Underground bases were stocked with supplies, and emergency protocols were refined. One quiet morning, John's sensors lit up with new activity. "Control, the Nexarian fleet is moving," he reported urgently. "They're conducting some kind of scan of our outer solar system." The scan wasn't hostile, but its purpose was clear. The Nexarians were mapping every detail of human space defenses. Their ships moved with mathematical precision, following perfectly calculated patterns. "Look at how they move," John noted in his report. "Every turn, every maneuver. It's all based on pure mathematics. There's no improvisation, no random movements." Admiral Monroe saw an opportunity in this observation. "If they're that predictable in their movements, we can use it against them. We'll give them patterns to analyze, but they won't be the real ones we'll use when the fighting starts." The USC began implementing Operation Ghost Pattern, a series of fake defense deployments designed to mislead the Nexarian observers. Ships moved in carefully planned formations, setting up patterns that looked logical but were actually elaborate deceptions. "They'll expect us to continue these same patterns when they attack," Lisa explained to her crew. "But we'll have completely different strategies ready. Every ship captain has their own unique battle plan, something no computer could predict." Dr. Carter's team made another breakthrough during this time. They developed a system that could partially mask their ship's energy signatures, making them appear less advanced than they actually were. "Let them underestimate us," Admiral Monroe said when the system was presented. "The more they think they know about our capabilities, the bigger their surprise will be." The tension continued to build as more Nexarian ships arrived at the edge of the solar system. Earth's population went about their daily lives, unaware of the growing fleet that waited in the darkness of space. John Hammond maintained his vigilant watch from his station, recording every movement and pattern of the alien ships. "They're so confident in their superiority that they're not even trying to hide their presence," he noted in his logs. "That might be their first mistake." As the month drew to a close, the USC had transformed Earth's defenses while maintaining an appearance of predictable routine. Underground bases were fully stocked, civilian evacuation plans were ready, and every ship captain had memorized multiple battle strategies that defied logical prediction. "We're as ready as we can be," Admiral Monroe told his command staff. "When they make their move, they'll find out that humans don't fight like machines. We fight with instinct, with emotion, and with a determination they can't calculate." The waiting continued, but now it was humanity who watched and planned, preparing surprises for an enemy who thought they could predict every move. The real question wasn't if the Nexarians would attack, but whether their logical minds could handle what humanity had in store for them. In the depths of space, John Hammond kept his vigilant watch, knowing that soon, very soon, the real test of humanity's preparation would begin. The warning signs were clear. War was coming to the solar system, and Earth intended to show the Nexarians that not everything in the universe could be reduced to mathematical equations. The attack began without warning. The Nexarian fleet surged forward from their position near Neptune, their ships moving in perfect geometric formations. Earth's outer colonies on Europa and Titan were their first targets. Captain Mary Sullivan was stationed at Europa Station when the first Nexarian ships appeared. The massive ice moon's surface reflected the flashes of weapon fire as the battle began. All hands to battle stations. Mary's voice rang through the station's communication system. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The station's shields activated just as the first Nexarian energy beams struck. Dr. Carter's modified shield technology held, surprising the attackers who had expected to destroy the station with their first volley. They're trying to predict our defense patterns, Mary observed, watching the enemy ships move in their precise formations. Let's show them how humans fight. Execute strategy random. The defense ships around Europa broke formation, each vessel moving in its own unique pattern. Small fighter craft darted between the larger Nexarian ships, their pilots relying on instinct and training rather than calculated maneuvers. They don't know how to handle it, one of Mary's officers reported with excitement. Their ships are hesitating, trying to recalculate their attack patterns. The battle around Europa became a lesson in human unpredictability. While the Nexarian ships maintained their rigid formations, the human defenders weaved and dodged in ways that defied mathematical prediction. Several Nexarian ships were damaged as they failed to adjust to the chaotic battle style. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Monroe coordinated the overall defense. The Nexarians are splitting their forces, he announced to the command center. They're launching simultaneous attacks on all our outer colonies. The United Space Command's preparation paid off. As the Nexarians approached each target, they encountered different defensive strategies. No two human commanders fought the same way, making it impossible for the alien force to develop an effective counter-strategy. At Titan, the largest moon of Saturn, the human defenders used the dense atmosphere to their advantage. Small ships disappeared into the orange haze, emerging from unexpected angles to strike at the Nexarian vessels. Status report from all colonies, Admiral Monroe demanded, his eyes fixed on the massive display showing the various battles. Europa Station holdings. Sir, Captain Sullivan reports minimal damage and 2 enemy ships disabled. Titan base reporting successful defense. The Nexarians are pulling back to regroup. Mars Defense Force engaging enemy ships near Phobos. Our new shield technology is working better than expected. The first day of battle revealed something crucial about their enemy. The Nexarians were thrown off balance by human creativity. Their logical minds struggled to adapt to warfare that didn't follow predictable patterns. Mary Sullivan's voice came through the command center speakers. Admiral, we've noticed something. Every time we do something unexpected, their ships take exactly 7.2 seconds to recalculate their response. We can use that delay. Admiral Monroe smiled. Send that information to all commanders. That's the kind of advantage we need. The battle continued for 3 days. The Nexarians kept trying to apply their calculated strategies, but each human commander fought differently. Some used aggressive, head-on attacks, while others employed subtle tactics and traps. Dr. Carter worked with his team to analyze the data from the battles. Their ships are powerful, but their tactics are too rigid, he reported. They're fighting this war like it's a mathematics problem. On the 4th day, the Nexarians pulled their forces back to regroup. The outer colonies had held, though not without damage. Emergency repairs were carried out as everyone prepared for the next wave of attacks. They'll be back, Mary told her crew at Europa Station. But now, they know we're not an easy target. They'll have to adapt their strategies, and that's not something they're good at. Admiral Monroe used the brief respite to implement new defense plans. The USC's first wave of ships, built using technology from the Mars artifact, were ready for deployment. These vessels combine Nexarian engineering with human innovation. Remember, Monroe told his commanders, "We're not just fighting with technology. We're fighting with human spirit, with creativity and determination. Those are weapons the Nexarians don't have." The cost of the first battles was significant. Several ships were lost, and many brave crew members had sacrificed themselves to protect their colonies. But humanity had proven something important. They could stand against the Nexarians. They expected us to be primitive and easily conquered, Lisa Bennett said during a strategy meeting. Instead, they found an enemy that doesn't fight by their rules. The USC used the lull in fighting to strengthen their defenses. New weapons were installed, shields were upgraded, and battle plans were revised based on what they had learned about their enemy. The next attack will be harder, Admiral Monroe warned his forces. They'll try to adapt, to find patterns in our unpredictability. But that's their weakness. They can't truly understand how we think. As the solar system waited for the Nexarians' return, humanity's confidence grew. They had survived the first strike, protecting their colonies against a technologically superior force. More importantly, they had shown that human unpredictability and creativity could overcome alien logic. Mary Sullivan stood at the window of her station, watching Jupiter's massive form fill the sky beyond Europa's icy surface. They thought they were coming to conquer a primitive species, she said to her crew. Instead, they found out that humanity doesn't follow anyone's rules but our own. The first strike had ended, but the war was far from over. The Nexarians would return, probably with new strategies and stronger forces. But now they knew that conquering Earth wouldn't be the simple mathematical equation they had expected. Humanity had shown them a new kind of warfare, one where courage, creativity, and unpredictability could triumph over pure logic. Commander Paul Martinez stood before the holographic display in the USC's main strategy room, studying the movements of both human and Nexarian ships from previous battles. After weeks of analyzing combat data, he had noticed something fascinating about their enemy. "They're like a computer program," he explained to Admiral Monroe and the gathered military leaders. "They can learn and adapt, but only within their logical framework. What if we use that against them?" Dr. Elizabeth Taylor sat nearby, her tablet displaying complex lines of alien code. As the USC's lead computer scientist, she had been working on breaking down Nexarian communication patterns. "Commander Martinez is right," she added. "Their ship's combat systems are incredibly advanced, but they're predictable. I think I can create a virus that exploits this predictability." Admiral Monroe leaned forward, interested. "Explain." Elizabeth pulled up a detailed diagram on the main screen. "Their ships communicate using quantum-based signals. If we can inject false data into their network, we can disrupt their entire command structure." Paul stepped forward again. "And while their systems are confused, we hit them with completely irregular attack patterns. No formation, no standard tactics, pure chaos." The plan was approved, and Operation Thunderbolt began to take shape. Earth's forces would combine Elizabeth's virus with Paul's unconventional battle strategies to create something the Nexarians had never faced before. "We need to test this first," Elizabeth said, working late into the night with her team. "One wrong line of code could alert them to what we're doing." They set up a simulation using captured Nexarian technology. Day after day, they refined the virus, making it more subtle, more difficult to detect. Elizabeth barely slept, driven by the knowledge that this could be the key to humanity's survival. Meanwhile, Paul worked with ship captains across the fleet, teaching them new battle tactics that defied conventional logic. "Forget everything you know about standard space combat," he told them. "I want each ship to create its own unique fighting style." The Nexarians had withdrawn to the outer solar system, but their scout ships still watched Earth's forces. They observed as human ships performed regular patrol patterns, unaware that these movements were just a cover for the real preparations happening behind the scenes. "The virus is ready," Elizabeth announced one morning, her eyes tired but triumphant. "We can inject it into their network the next time they attack." Admiral Monroe called a final strategy meeting. "This is our chance to show them that humanity isn't just another species to be conquered," he told his commanders. "We're going to hit them with everything we've got, but not in any way they can predict." The wait wasn't long. 3 days later, the Nexarian fleet began moving toward Earth's colonies again. This time, their formation was different, showing they had learned from their previous encounters. "They think they've adapted to our tactics," Paul observed from the command center. "They haven't seen anything yet." As the Nexarian fleet approached Mars orbit, Elizabeth's virus was secretly uploaded into their communication network. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The enemy ships continued their advance, their movements as precise as ever. Then, subtle things began to go wrong in the Nexarian fleet. Ships began receiving conflicting orders. Their perfect formation started to show tiny errors. The virus was working its way through their systems, creating small but growing chaos. "Now," Admiral Monroe ordered, "launch Operation Thunderbolt." Earth's fleet burst into action, but not in any way the Nexarians could have predicted. Each ship followed its own random pattern. Some charged straight at the enemy. Others performed impossible maneuvers that seemed to make no tactical sense. The Nexarian ships hesitated, their logical systems struggling to process the completely irregular attack. Their usually perfect formations broke apart as each ship tried to deal with multiple unpredictable threats. "It's working," Paul exclaimed, watching the battle unfold. "Their ships can't calculate effective responses because none of our attacks follow any pattern." Elizabeth monitored the virus's progress from her station. "Their communication network is falling apart. They can't coordinate their defenses." The battle turned into something that had never been seen before in space warfare. Human ships darted and weaved in completely random patterns, while Nexarian vessels tried desperately to form coherent defensive positions. "Keep pushing," Admiral Monroe ordered. "Don't let them regroup." Some human captains flew their ships in spiral patterns, others in zigzags. Some charged straight at the enemy before suddenly reversing course. Each movement was unique, impossible to predict. The Nexarian fleet began to break apart. Their ships, unable to establish proper battle formations or receive clear orders, started to retreat. For the first time, humanity witnessed the mighty Nexarian war machine in disarray. "They're pulling back," Paul reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "The virus and our irregular attacks. They can't handle both at once." Elizabeth's team continued to monitor the enemy's communications. Their entire command structure is in chaos. They're trying to purge the virus, but it's too deeply embedded now. As the Nexarian fleet retreated beyond Mars orbit, a cheer went up in the command center. They had done it. They had found a way to fight an enemy that had conquered countless other species. Admiral Monroe waited for the celebration to quiet down. "This is just the beginning," he reminded everyone. "They'll try to adapt to this strategy too. But now we know for certain. Humanity's greatest strength is our ability to be unpredictable." Paul and Elizabeth's strategy had proven something important. Sometimes the best way to fight a logical enemy was with complete illogic. The Nexarians had faced many species before, but none that fought quite like humans. As the Earth fleet regrouped and began repairs, everyone knew the war was far from over. But they had found their path to victory, one that embraced chaos, creativity, and the uniquely human ability to think outside any box. The counter-strategy had worked better than anyone had hoped. Now it was time to prepare for the next phase of the war, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy even more surprises. Admiral Susan Parker stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant, watching Saturn's rings glisten in the distance. The largest fleet Earth had ever assembled was gathered around her ship, preparing for what everyone hoped would be the final battle. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her communications officer announced. The fleet had been positioned carefully, hidden within Saturn's complex ring system. They knew the Nexarians were coming. Their scouts had detected a massive enemy fleet approaching. The virus is still active in their systems, Dr. Elizabeth Taylor reported from her station on Earth. They've managed to clear some of it, but not all. Their communication network is still vulnerable. The waiting was the hardest part. Susan had led many battles, but this one felt different. The Nexarians had gathered almost their entire remaining fleet for this assault. They had decided to end the war with one massive attack. Enemy fleet detected. The sensor officer called out. They're approaching from 3 directions. It's their largest force yet. Susan took a deep breath. Send the signal. Begin Operation Starcross. The human fleet burst from its hiding place in Saturn's rings, but not as one unit. Instead, the ships scattered in all directions, each following its own unique battle plan. The Nexarians, expecting a traditional military formation, found themselves facing hundreds of ships moving in completely unpredictable patterns. The virus is affecting their targeting systems, Elizabeth reported over the command channel. Their weapons are having trouble locking onto our ships. The space around Saturn erupted into chaos. Human ships darted between the rings, using the ice and rock as cover. Some vessels seemed to fly straight at the enemy before veering away at the last second. Others spun and twisted in ways that defied normal space combat tactics. Remember, Susan broadcast to her fleet, don't fall into patterns. Every move should be unexpected. The Nexarian fleet tried to adjust, their ships moving to create their usual geometric formations. But between the virus corrupting their systems and the completely irregular human attack patterns, they couldn't establish their usual precise coordination. A massive Nexarian battleship exploded as 3 human vessels attacked it from different angles, each using a different strategy. The enemy's shields, designed to counter logical attack patterns, couldn't adapt fast enough to the chaotic assault. Their command ship is trying to reorganize their fleet, Elizabeth reported, launching final virus payload now. The effect was immediate. The Nexarian command vessel's lights flickered, and its movement became erratic. The virus had finally reached their central control systems. This is our chance, Susan announced to the fleet. All ships, execute your random attack plans. Hit them while they're confused. What followed was unlike anything in the history of space warfare. Each human ship became a unique threat, moving and attacking in ways that no tactical computer could predict. Some pilots flew loops around enemy vessels. Others charged straight through their formations. The Nexarian fleet began to break apart. Without their usual precise coordination, their technological advantages meant less. They couldn't adapt to an enemy that refused to follow any predictable strategy. Their fleet is splitting up, the tactical officer reported. Multiple ships are beginning emergency jumps out of the system. Susan watched as more Nexarian vessels retreated. The mighty alien armada, which had conquered countless civilizations, was running from the unpredictable fury of human warfare. Don't let them regroup, she ordered. Keep the pressure on. The human fleet pressed their advantage, each ship continuing its unique attack pattern. More Nexarian vessels flood, unable to cope with the combination of the virus and humanity's chaotic battle tactics. After 3 hours of intense fighting, it was over. The remaining Nexarian ships jumped out of the solar system, leaving behind the wreckage of their defeated fleet. The cheer that went up through the human fleet was deafening. They had done it. They had driven back one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. All ships report status, Susan called out, still maintaining her professional composure despite the victory. The reports came in. They had lost ships and brave crew members, but the losses were far fewer than expected. The combination of Elizabeth's virus and their unpredictable tactics had worked better than anyone had hoped. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. Humanity had not just survived. They had shown the galaxy that technology alone didn't determine the outcome of wars. In the days that followed, Other alien species made contact with Earth. Many had been watching the conflict, amazed that a relatively young civilization had managed to defeat the Nexarians. They want to form alliances, Admiral Monroe told Susan during the victory ceremony. Your victory has changed humanity's place in the galaxy. Susan looked out at the assembled fleet, now heroes in humanity's first major galactic conflict. We showed them something important, she said. Technology and logic aren't everything. Sometimes the best strategy is to have no strategy at all. The Nexarians never returned to Earth's solar system. Reports from across the galaxy told of other civilizations rising up against them, inspired by humanity's victory. The species that had relied on perfect logic and superior technology had been defeated by human unpredictability and creativity. Earth established itself as a major power in the galaxy, not through overwhelming force, but through the unique human ability to think and act in ways that no logical system could predict. As Susan Parker stood in front of her crew one last time before taking on her new role as Earth's first galactic ambassador, she smiled. We didn't just win a war, she told them. We showed the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to be unpredictable, to think creatively, and to never, ever give up. The war was over, but humanity's journey to the stars was just beginning. They had earned their place among the galactic civilizations, and they had done it their way, with creativity, courage, and just a little bit of chaos.